Let's see. Yeah. So the biggest issue is where do we put the sphere overlap? Do we do a sphere overlap on the player or on the enemies? I think it's best to put it on the enemy, because if a bigger enemy, if the player sphere is too small, that means you have to get pretty close to it before that sphere kind of activates. Instead, we can change it based on enemy size and distance that we want you to be able to kind of like get into a fight with them. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I think that'll be the best case scenario. All right, so let's building. Let's jump into our other stuff. Let's close. Let's close. Let's. I don't think we do that right now. Player character, controller, and settings. Okay, we're gonna do this in player character. This is gonna be our current jump stuff. Let's let that encode. Dun, dun. Jump. Okay. We also need to have it happen where we're not auto jumping though. So this works, but then like let's say we fall because of something other than us running off of a ledge. We don't want the character to necessarily jump. So what we have to do is say, after we do the jump, let's turn it off. Let's make sure that we don't need a delay in there and that this still will work. And you know what, we're gonna collapse. No jump group. And then we'll still have to tweak things like jump height and things like that. Jump. The other thing to note is we could potentially do a trace instead, which is the idea that, okay, we're going to check and see if in the next frame we're going to be falling off of a ledge or something, and then jump before we even get to the end of that ledge. This is fine, but you know, I want to avoid tracing if we can, so we can look into the code and see if there's a perch piece of code we can hijack for our jump. All right, let's test it. Make sure that we can still auto jump. Nope, it's not quick enough. Ooh. So we do need like a delay, essentially. Like a 0.2 second delay or something like that. So we go for the jump, and it doesn't quite finish jumping in time. Which, you know, is fine, because having this delay is not that big of a deal. Point 2 should be enough. Yeah, so that seems fine. Okay, perfect. Camera's still a problem where, you know, as you're running, like all action games do it, where the camera will slowly kind of rotate to face wherever you're going. We need to implement that eventually. Some point in time. We'll get there. Still lots to do. Alright, so here's our current code base for our game. We are going to implement on our characters, or enemy characters, this sphere. We don't need it on the player character, though. So here in our parent class for characters, we're not going to put it. We are going to put it on our enemy kind of parent class, which will be this default guy. Instead of calling him a minion, let's call him enemy. Character enemy. Let's also check and see. I think, yeah, player character is the other one. What I want to do is rename this to character player to make sure everything kind of stays consistent. His enemies are going to be character enemy, and this is going to be character. Alright, so perfect. Enemy, character enemy. We're going to put in some functionality to start and end combat. We're going to do sphere collision. Oh no, come on. Sphere collision. We're going to call this one combat sphere. Although, I mean, it depends on how we want to do interactions with other things. This might not be just a combat sphere, so I'm not sure quite yet how we want to do that. For every single character, it'll be a little different, but for now, I think we're just going to say combat sphere is like, I don't know, 800. Let's take a look what it looks like in the level. Yeah, I mean, that's about right. You know, you could do it at like 1,000 or something. Yeah, let's do it like, I don't know, 1,000. So as we get to the bottom of the stairs, you'll be entering into combat with this guy. You're close enough for him to fight you. Something that you want to do, because of the way we're going to exit fighting, is by like backing away from him. So let's say the player starts going back up the stairs. We want to make sure that when you're in combat, the sphere gets slightly bigger, so that it's not an instantaneous kind of thing. Like, we don't want the player to suddenly switch back and forth between combat and not combat, like a bunch, just because they're like right on the edge. We're going to do pawn overlap, and that's it. We don't overlap anything else, none of that, and we're good. And let's see if we can change the color for this guy. Combat red is actually pretty fine, I think, so let's keep it. This is our combat sphere. And eventually you can start thinking about if you want to put in some UI or something to show where on the ground, like a decal or something, how close the player has to get, so then the player understands, like, if I get this too close to them, then I'll fight them. Just because there's no way to avoid combat right now. Where's end overlap? Okay. Okay. So what we're gonna say is, when you overlap another actor, it has to be like a character. This has to be a character, no matter what. So we have to cast to a character. Other actors we aren't going to ever target. In our main character, we have this focus target. That's what we're going to be setting. Although we could, instead of doing this, we could check and see if it has a tag or something like that, as opposed to checking if it's a character. You know, if it's like the player character has a certain tag for its team, or it has a tag for saying it's something you should fight. Actor has tag kind of thing. Say player. If that's the case, then the player is going to enter combat, and so is this guy. We don't actually have to check this. What we can check here is equal to our focus target. Which will say, hey, if the thing you're currently trying to fight left, then you're out of combat. Or we can check and see if you have a list of them, you know. But for our case right now, no. This is going to be a one-on-one kind of thing, and we'll kind of expand it to multiple units after. You got to figure out how to do camera movements and changes and stuff too. Yeah, I'm not sure how to do that. Oh man! All right, I really need that second monitor. Okay, actor has tag, player. We go into our player. Let's add a tag. And for enemies, we actually can do the same thing. Let's just do this tag enemy. Okay, so we want to set focus target. Setting the focus target. How do we want to do it? Well, we can check this out and see if we can use something here. So we have the need to set our focus target to the player and the player's focus target to us. So let's do this as a set focus target. And we're going to do this pass an actor. Focus. Compile save inside of the character. We can put this in here. Event set focus target. And we're just going to set it. This can be anything, which means like, okay, it could be null, which means that we are now going to leave combat. Or it can be any kind of character, actor, or enemy. We set in combat when this is valid. Or if it's not valid, we can just set it perfect, because then we won't be in combat. We don't have to do anything. We just set it directly from this. Okay. So our player character and our other guy will immediately do this when we say set focus target to this thing, and this thing is going to set focus target to set focus target message. There we go. To this thing, to the enemy. Let's go ahead and let's pop this down into a smaller thing. And so, this guy here, we only need the one. Let's close all those. Kill both those. This is not going to be self. This is just going to be an actor. Is it the player? If it is the player, then we're going to do something. We're going to set the player as our core focus. And then set the player to focus us. Again, we'll have to have like a list eventually, because if the player's fighting like 5 people, we have to keep track of all 5 of them. For now, I do not care. Let's make it fun fighting one-on-one. And if we have a focus actor, like I said before, we're actually going to increase this combat sphere. Set radius to something bigger. We're not going to... we could update the overlaps. I don't know. I'm not sure if we really need to. The player's already in it, and we shouldn't be overlapping anything else. I don't think the player's going to have any like friendly units with them, ever. That's a good question though. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So let's do this. This is the default focus radius. Then we need to have a max focus radius. Focus radius max, and then we'll change this one. Focus radius minimum. So the maximum is what we're going to set it to here, and then we'll set it back to the minimum when we're done. So minimum is 1,000, and the maximum can be like 1,400 or something like that, or 1,200. We'll figure it out. Okay, so this graph we're going to call in overlap group. This is going to be an actor, and when we end the overlap, we're going to tell both people to end the focus. So basically the same thing here. So we're going to say set focus to none, target set focus to none, combat sphere set to minimum. And I think that's good. And then the only thing we have to do in the player, although when we, that's a good question in terms of the AI controller, like event in focus or enter focus. Set focus target. Set focus target, we're going to call to the parent because we want the parent to do all the work. And then what we're going to say is valid. If this, or you know what we can do is just say get focus target, do a validated get. We need to get the AI and set the AI's focus. So get the AI controller of ourselves, and then we're going to say set focus. So the AI has this focus system in which even like when I was first starting out with Unreal 4, I was trying to like tell the AI to look at something. And didn't realize that they have their own separate kind of focus system, which annoyed the crap out of me. Now that you know about it, or I know about it, you just basically have to use it. I'm sure there's a way to kind of like override it, but when I originally started working on stuff, I just had no idea. I had to start looking it up on the forums and felt like an idiot after that. AI is focus. Alright, so that's good. The AI will have a focus. Our player controller rotation is also going to have to get updated, but we're going to do that automatically for our player controller and whatnot. I don't think that the player controller has a focus itself. I think this is just an AI thing. But we should be able to have the player, character, and stuff all work, except in here we have to rotate the player to face it and to turn off a few things. So event focus, set focus target, which we're going to call to the parent again. So we're overriding this version for the player. In which we're going to also say get focus target to say, are we Oh, you know what we can do is just say, are we in combat or not? Because that's actually set as well already. So if we're in combat, what we can do is do whatever it is we need to do to enter combat state and do all these things, blah, blah, blah. We could technically do this in the parent class to have a combat state. So here we have be in combat stuff here. Basically say a function for combat states. We won't do it yet. We'll do that next time. Next time. Okay. If we're in combat or not. If we are, we're going to do... See, that's why having a combat state, we can enter and an exit would be really nice. Alright, we're doing it. We're going to take our time and do things right, I guess. Why do I have to do things right? Hold on. Let's just do a custom event or something like it. What do I want to do? Combat, all this stuff here. Is there any reason why I should be saying enter combat from some other kind of thing? This is basically my enter combat, is when we focus or unfocus something. So I don't necessarily need... You know what, hold on. Let's do this mostly correct. Or at least what I think would be correct. Not always right when it comes to that. Combat, we're going to put this in red and do acceleration down. And do a white comment for each one of these things. Just take damage. Yeah, this is damage states. This is our death state. And then we're going to do just an event called enter combat state. And combat state. And this is just like everything else. We have some rules about entering and exiting, and then, yeah, everything else is pretty easy. So we get in combat. So we're going to do this, and we're just going to collapse them down. Alright, so we can only enter combat if we're not in combat. If we're already in combat, then we can't do it. And we need to have a valid target. So it's another check, even though this should be valid, because we shouldn't be calling this if we're not, but yeah, it's kind of a just in case thing. Can't enter combat. Alright. You know, normal stuff, blah blah blah. Probably a little bit going overboard, but it is okay to do that sometimes. Enter combat. So when we've entered combat, we are all good. We have a target. We can override this stuff then. Exit combat, same thing. We have to ask, can we exit combat? As long as we can, then whatever, we'll do it. Oh. One problem that you will run into with this kind of thing, though, is when we override these things in future whatchamacallits, in our child classes, these checks, we'll have to redo them again, or we'll have to find a better way to do the rest of it, essentially, because if you look at like one of these overridden ones, event enter combat, this is great and all, we link it to the parent, but we actually don't know whether or not we've actually entered combat. There are other ways we can kind of fix this in terms of like attempt to enter combat, and then we'll have an actual enter combat state. They're separate. Then we can override the combat state one and not the attempt to do it. That's a possibility. Right now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. We'll get back to it. Maybe next time that's something that we'll focus on doing, is updating all those checks to be correct. So focus, and actually this is technically combat, so let's throw it in here. It's going to be enter and exit. State, exit combat state. And of course, like I said, you should never get to combat, because this is blocking it if you don't have a target. But it's always good to double check, just in case. Oh man, it's already getting late. Okay. In combat, out of combat. So this is in. It's fine. Exit. It's like this. It's fine. I'm not even going to check the target on here. That should be fine. Alright, perfect. So here, when we have the player stuff, exit combat state, we can do some stuff specific for the player and player controller, which is going to be things like turning off the navigate orient to movement, and we can do things like slow the player down depending on how fast we want them to be moving in combat. I don't think we're going to do that right now, but and then we need to also update the player controller to always look at their current target. So there's a couple ways to do that. I don't know if there's a good way in the player controller. I hate to use the tick right now, but I'm just kind of running out of steam, so I don't really want to take too long on this. Do they have any sort of focus? Semantic leap. So focus game mode. No. They don't. That's just an AI thing. You can do it in a loop, or like a timer loop, but you have to do it pretty quick. Because we're trying to make sure that it's very smooth. Or it could just be one of those things that we're just going to throw on the tick for now, because we're going to be moving this over to C++ eventually anyway, and we'll just kind of take a look at how they do their code for their AI focus and kind of steal that. because I'm assuming it's going to be decently fast, and you might as well just do the same thing as what we want. We want the controller to always be facing the target. So when this happens, we're not going to worry about whether or not we're actually entering combat or not. We do have to change this so that, it double checks it, or like I said before, we have an attempt to enter and then an enter. Although I don't know if it really matters that much. Not right now. So orient to movements off, and we need to say that you can't look around, which I think touch look, we already set that up, right? Tap input and touch, no. So we need to say that we're not in combat as well. So we can't do a look if we're in combat. Because the look stuff is going to be taken care of for us. Something we can do is just kind of hijack our movement stuff, where it's checking these things, because this is always running anyway. Instead of putting in a tick, we can do it this way if we want, which basically is just saying get focus. We're just going to do a get focus target for now. I don't think we really want to check if we're in combat or not, because what if we do want to have the ability to focus something out of combat? I don't know. I've not designed that yet. These are the things you should probably do before you start working. But, since this is a fun project and not a who cares, need to get it done kind of thing. So if we have one, we want to set control rotation. Oh, wait, we need to do that differently. Hold on. So essentially what we're doing is we need to get actor, or I wonder if we get look at rotation. I think that's get actor location first, and then find look at rotation. Yeah, there we go. Target start is from our character. So from our character to them. Let's break this and let's do a make rotation. We're not going to do a, we don't have to do a break, we can do a split. I don't know if we want to change the pitch. I guess we can. Set control rotation. I think I have to get my controller. Yeah, okay, perfect. Set control rotation. I don't have to cast anything. Awesome. Should take both of these up slightly. Let's toss this into a group called check or update focus rotation. Alright, so if we do have a focus, then we're going to always be turning our camera to face it. Basically instantaneously right now, but we have a little bit of lag, which will help ease that a little bit. Okay, so here we are. We're able to look around, we're able to move, and as we get into combat here, we should change. And we didn't. Why not? Let's see. Player character. Oh, tap to move isn't coming through. That might be part of it. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, there we go. Although I'm still not orienting to my center. So let's see why that's happening then. Oh, because when we enter, we set it to true, not the other way around. The other thing is that we snap to the middle. So here we go. And snapping to the middle is going to be okay. But you can see, like, you lose the character, the enemy. You can't move your camera, which is good. You can still tap to move though, which is great because we want that. But of course, if we tap on like a character, we don't want them to necessarily move to them. We want to, whatever, attack them or stab. So tap to move, we'll have to double check. And something that we could do is like, because that's a pretty big movement thing. It's tracing down X amount, like 200 units. 200 might just be too much. But either way, it works. So here we go. We can move around. We can do all this stuff. We can put a button in for blocking or some other way to do it, like two-finger tap. And we can leave. And then once we get out, we're all free. And then when we jump back in, we're right back into combat. I think that's going to do it for now. Just because if we start getting into more complicated stuff like swiping attacks and whatnot, it's going to get more and more difficult. Although here, let's play animation. Montage, just for a second. Attack 1. It's fine. Let's just do that. Just to see. So you can't do it yet. You get into combat. Swipe. Although it's not ending, but you can attack. Swipe, attack. And then the hope, what I'm thinking is that the direction you swipe, so what this one is this way, so you'd swipe this way for that. This way for a different one, up and down, and then stabbing with the tap. Bring the shield up with a button or something, and then that has an attack as well, like a bash or something. And you start having some fun. Yeah, it's not bad though. I think it works, at least for now. But yeah, that's about it. I think that's it for me today. Not sure when I'm going to be doing more streams or what I'm going to do yet, but it's just kind of like the way I do breaks. So I might do it every weekend or every couple days or something. Maybe if I need like a couple hours to stop and do something more basic. I would say a lot of the stuff I'm working on right now is like design work that I have never seen in other games. There are certain things that overlap, but a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is like, it's interesting but difficult. It's one of those things that we might end up going back to a more standardized game design eventually, but right now we're really trying to explore and think of some new ways to do certain things that you just don't see that often. So this is nice where you come in. I'm just going to make a nice little Zelda knockoff game and, hopefully come up with some cool puzzles, some cool combat. Not sure if this will ever become more than just a kind of side thing, but yeah, till next time. Take it easy.